Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Broken But Better podcast. I'm your lovely host, Mariah, and I'm super excited that you're here. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the family. If you are a returning viewer subscriber, thank you so much for spending a block on your girl to see what I have in store for you today. Let's jump right into today's episode. So, today's episode is like no other. This is an episode that the light bulb went off in my head when I was having this conversation. And I want to name this episode Just Because. Just because I love you is the reason why I bless you. Just because I love you makes you more than enough for me. And recently, the light bulb went off. I feel like God said, I'm going to hold your hand when I tell you this. God had to tell me to stop treating him like a battered woman. And here's what I mean by that. Anyone who has been in an abusive relationship, I pray that you get out of that situation. But anyone who has been in an abusive relationship, after a while, the longer you stay, you think this is the only way that people show love, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, verbal. This is the way you think that they show love and the way that you think that you deserve love. And I started to treat God like that. I started to look like suffering as a reward for God to bless me. I started to see suffering as this is the only way that God can bless me. That when I go through a season of silence and a season of peace, that means that God, I've done something wrong, that I haven't worked to earn God's love or worked to earn his blessings. And God had to tell me, just because I love you is the reason why I bless you. That you don't have to do anything for me to bless you. And I've made this channel, if you go back and look at other videos, talking about the importance of obedience. But what happens when you don't do anything to earn God's love? What happens when you don't do anything to get that prayer that you want answered? What happens when the true desires of your heart, you don't have to do anything to get it and God still blesses you with it? I was getting in the way of my own blessings because I felt that I had to work for it. And I had to work for it through suffering. One person, I had went to this therapy session, a spiritual therapy session, and the man told me, he said, "You suffer well." In that moment, I took it as a badge of honor to say that God, whatever you take me through, like I was having a Job moment. God, whatever you take me through, whatever you take from me, God, I'll still bless you. I'll still serve you. And I started to prepare, or I started to make my relationship with God that way. That every season I was ready. I was on the battlefield to say, if I'm not suffering, I'm not doing something well. If I'm not being obedient to God, the moment that I be disobedient, God isn't going to bless me. That I was so busy working for this relationship. And God had to tell me, I'm doing this just because I love you. That you don't have to treat me like you're a battered woman and that I'm abusing you to get what you want. That I'm just going to be a God that beats on you, a God that makes you go through the wilderness time after time. And I'm going to make you lose these things and get rid of these things. It made me think about, it made me realize how bad I was treating God. That maybe I'm loving you, God, from a place of what you can do for me and not just who you are. Or I made this idea in my mind of the type of God you are. Recently, I discovered that that's not true reverence of God, that I fear God as a punisher more than I do as a rewarder. Like, think about it. If you didn't do something right based off this relationship that I've cultivated with God, this battered woman syndrome, I'm assuming the moment I do something wrong, God is going to punish me. That I've created a fear of God in the wrong light versus a reverence to God, that a fear of your power and a fear of who you truly are, the fear to curse you. But I've created you as this God of punishment and punishment only. That the only way that you will reward me is if I do exactly what it is you told me to do. Obedience is good, but we are children of God, and not all the times we're going to do right. And what it built up in me is a fear that I have to do everything, dot every I, cross every T. And I don't think it's anything wrong with that. What I found myself doing is trying to people please God. It's crazy to say that I'm trying to people please God or manipulate God into believing I truly want to do this just so that I may get a reward. Because we have these sayings, do it even when you don't feel like it, and God is going to reward you even when you don't feel like it. But at some point we have to be careful, because that mindset will then have us manipulating God to say, God, I'm being obedient so that you can give me something. whether it's something that I prayed for, or whether that, and this was me thinking, like, I'm not even going to project this on you. This is what I'm thinking, that if I do it, God, you're going to bless something in my life, whether it be my family, whether it be my finances, whether it be places that I serve, whether it be my home, my job, that if I do it, you're going to bless me in some magnitude. But what I'm doing is I'm manipulating God based off my emotions and my thought process versus truly understanding who God is, to say, God, you're blessing me just because you love me. It made me realize I don't know how much God loves me. I have not, or I have erased agape love from my mind, and I have made God a conditional God. Agape love allows there to be no conditions, that you don't have to do anything to earn this love, that I'm keeping you and protecting you just because I love you, not because of your good deeds, Mariah. Not because you think that you have to do this, that at some point you're going to keep doing this and you're going to run low, and then you're going to look at God to say, I did all of these things, God, and you still didn't bless me. And God probably in the back of his mind to say, I never told you to do these things, but because you equated suffering, because you equated this mindset that you have to work to get what it is that I have for you, you've done this. You've put yourself in these situations. You've made yourself more tired. And what I've learned is the very thing that I'm good at is also could be my very thing that I'm weak at. I have prided myself in being obedient to God, that I'll say yes the first time, that I don't want to prolong what it is that you want me to do, God, because I'm stubborn or because I just don't want to do it. But I want to say yes the first time. And those have been prayers that I've prayed constantly. And God has been a God that has answered me. But God has also shown me that that's a weakness of mine, that because you're so obedient, that you have equated every time I tell you to do something to suffering. That sometimes your simple yes is, okay, you surrender to me that you'll do it my way, and I'm going to still make it easy for you. Or another thing is that I've prided myself on suffering, that I'm so strong that I'm going to get out of this with my head high. That suffering is a place where, God, you can make me, you can mold me, that I truly love you, that I'm proving to God I'm willing to go to the ringer to prove that you get the glory. That Job didn't sign up to go through this. So Mariah, why are you constantly signing up to go through suffering? And you putting the stress on your body. You're putting this pain on your body. You're pulling this strain in our relationship. Because that's really what I have altered, or that I've done, is I put a strain in my relationship with God, that I'm only seeing him one dimensional, that God, you can only bless me through the suffering. And I'm not here to discourage anybody that suffering doesn't take place, because I think we live in a world where we expect things to be so easy, and we think that this walk with God is always going to be easy and it doesn't come with suffering. But at some point I've idolized suffering, that that's the only way that I'll get to the other side of this. And if I'm not careful, I will idolize suffering, that I will make people think that God is only in the suffering. That in my teachings with you, in my conversation with you as we watch this podcast and navigate this thing called life, that suffering is the only way, is the gateway to get to the other side. That suffering is not the only gateway. And also, God is not a fearful God that he's willing to punish you. Like, I had to change my mindset. And I thought about it, like, where did I get this from? I didn't grow up in an abusive home. Sometimes people say, well, maybe you thought you seen your father in this light, and now you have depicted this picture of God in this way. And I had to say, where did I get this from? Because that's not how I was raised. I wasn't raised to see men in certain ways where that's the only way. Punishment was the only way that you seen love. That I had to say, where did I get this from? And I got it in the place of, I've closed out God to look bigger than suffering. I've closed out God. And if I'm going to be honest, I think I got it from church. If I'm going to be honest, I got it from believing that you have to work so hard to be seen. That you have to work so hard to be chosen by God. That you have to be put through the mud, that we talk about rejection and embarrassment and people lying on you, that I thought that if I'm not suffering, then how will people know that you're God? If I'm not suffering, then how would people know that you're an overcomer and that you're a deliverer, that you're a healer, that everything that comes to me, I sometimes will accept it because I know, which is a good thing, that you'll get me through this. Right. So the thing that I'm good at is believing and having faith that you'll get me through this. But some things you have not sent my way. But I've accepted it and got on my face and learned about you more. And but am I putting myself through unnecessary obstacles because I feel that this is who you are? Am I putting myself through unnecessary warfare because I feel this is who you are? And I felt like, thinking about it, hindsight, that I've developed that mindset in church that if I'm not allowing persecution to happen, that if I'm not allowing it to be hard, then God, you can't reward me. That if I don't say yes to doing what the church wants me to do and everything that the church wants me to do, and when I say this, I'm talking about being engulfed in church, saying yes to serving, saying yes to people, going out of my way, being inconvenienced. Like when I say yes to those things, I did it with a heart that it was like, this is what God wants me to do. And then I took that and I applied that to other situations. And I'm not saying you shouldn't serve in churches. I'm never saying that, because in church, serving is where I got the heart posture of God. Serving is where I could see the compassion of people. Serving is what turned me into an intercessor. All of these different things. But it also was a place where it showed me or made me feel as if I'm not suffering, I'm not doing enough. That if I'm not, if it's so easy, then I'm not doing enough. And if it's so easy, then God isn't going to bless me. That it made me feel like I had to accept all of the suffering and the pain. And I do know one thing, that none of that is wasted, right? But it's opening my eyes to see God in another dimension. That he's just not a God of punishment and a God of suffering. But if we look at things in the Bible, like, God is a God of love. That, Mariah, I can bless you even if you don't do anything. You've done the ultimate thing that I asked of you, and I've asked you to choose me, and you've chosen me. That I could just bless you for that. That I could bless you because I love you. That before you did this walk with me, before you was really serious about this, I did it in the past just because I loved you. That when you were 21 and you were doing things that you didn't have any business doing, or 25 doing things that you didn't have any business doing, you didn't even look at me like that. But because I loved you, I was still keeping you and blessing you and protecting you, blowing your mind, doing things that you didn't even know was possible. And it's all because I love you. You didn't have to do anything to get it. So now that the tables have turned, and now that you are walking this thing with me, you only see me as a God of suffering and a God that only blesses you when you come out of this iniquity and when you come from this pain, because pain does produce something. Suffering will produce something, but I need you to be careful that I'm not making you. What type of God am I that will make you suffer forever? What type of God am I that you're always going through it? And for me, it was like, but I'm getting these great revelations from you, God. A transparent moment. I'll only know you if I go through the suffering. Why would God, that would make God so evil that he only allowed you to see him in the suffering? But why can't you see him in the peace? Why can't you see God in love? And it made me think, and made me see myself as, I gotta soften up a little bit. There's some work in me that still needs to be done, that I now need to see God in a loving way. Like, God, show me how good it is just because you love me. Show me that the just because, like, have you ever got a gift from somebody and you're like, man, what did I do to deserve this? Or what made you get this? And they say, just because. That I gotta start training my mind now in my relationship with God, that I'm not a battered woman, that I'm not in an abusive relationship that thinks that that's the only way that God loves me, is if he puts me through something. That if you're not putting me through a test, God, you ain't nothing new about to happen in my life. Ain't nothing great about to come out of this. I'm not about to get no new revelation. But God said, I can give you a great revelation in the peace. I can give you a great revelation of who I am in the rest. That you don't always have to be on go, that you don't always have to be in a season or a state of lament. That Ecclesiastic tells us there's a time for everything, a time for mourning, a time for celebration. But I've cultivated my mind to believe if I'm not suffering, then God isn't going to bless me. That if I'm not being obedient to every little thing, dotting every I and crossing every T, that God is not present in my midst. But God has really shown me, just because I love you, I'm going to give you peace. That just because I love you, when something comes your way, I'm going to have you think about it differently. That just because I love you, I'm going to protect your family. I'm going to show up in a way that you didn't expect me to do. And it's just because I love you. It's just because I love you that I'm now in a place of unpacking God's true love for me. That when you first get saved and you first become like super aware of God, you are so in love with Him. You're in love with His creation. You're in love with His ways. You're in love with the fact of the way He thinks. You're in love with what He has done, how He's died on the cross. You're so in love with Him. And you see the agape love, but we lose that in translation when we get so caught up in doing and not just being, or not just because. That I've gotten so caught up in doing and being obedient and wanting to feel the suffering and waiting on the next challenge. Because one thing about me is I can accept a challenge. Competition is no match for me, because once I could do it once, oh, I'm done. Like in my mind, that's how I've trained myself, and I put that on God to say, oh, nothing is too hard for God. That God, you could put me through whatever. When I tell you, I was felt like I was Job. Test me, oh God. But baby, when them tests starting to feel like unnecessary, when it's like it's a test every day, like when we make funny jokes like, God, I don't want to be on your strongest soldier list, I normally be like, God, whatever you want to do. That I'm accepting the breaking and the refining, and I'm not encouraging you to not sit in the suffering when it's your time, but you got to discern the season and really look at God as a God of love and mercy. And what's the true meaning of mercy if I think that God always has to whoop me? Like, what's the true meaning of His grace if I feel like God is always has to punish me? That certain things I shouldn't be fighting because He did it on the cross for me. That certain things that when come to my front door, I should say I send it back to center, because God has already died on the cross for my sin. That every stripe that He took was for my healing. That who the Son sets free is free indeed. That everything doesn't require a suffering. And I think that a part of me has to forgive the church for making me feel, and this is just me, I'm not saying that they did this intentionally, but making me feel as if that's the only way to get to God, is if you go through it, and if you say yes to everything, and if you do all these things, because, and it could just be my interpretation out of my lens of what I thought God wanted, right? But that same thing that has birthed something good in me, which was serving in church and dying to my flesh and being available to people and to different things, built me up. And God will say that some parts of me that I've gained or developed has also hurt me. The very thing that I'm good at, like I can write a whole book on suffering. I feel like I can write a whole book on being obedient. The same thing that I'm good at. Here's what I learned the other day is you become so good at it sometimes you don't need God. That God is such a good God that He will direct our thinking to say, because you don't need me in suffering anymore, because you've mastered it, because you don't need me in being obedient because you've mastered it, I got to show you where you've been blind. I got to show you a blind side, that there's a loophole in this, that is more of you than it is of me, that you're doing suffering without me, even though you're on your knees praying, that you're doing suffering with the ego that is just like that you're strong enough to get through this. That the strength is coming from you. Like the yes that you're being so obedient is coming from you, and it's not me on the inside of you that's telling you, that's giving you the strength that knows the future, is giving you to say yes. That now I got to redirect how you see these things so that you are truly dependent on me. And what a loving God, what a gentle God, that instead of doing it the harsh way, He said, I'm willing to show you how much I love you. I'm willing to give you love in exchange for suffering. I'm willing to give you my love in exchange for obedience, that I'm doing it just because. That what if you're now living in a season of just because? That I'm blessing you just because I love you. That I'm honoring you just because. That when you wake up, people are chasing you down for blessings and you're like, what did I do to deserve this? And it's just because. That I'm now experiencing God in a just because manner. And it made me truly realize, when we talk about this whole idea of a battered woman, I was hurting God's feelings because to me, I felt like I was hurting God's feelings because it's like, you only see me as a punisher. That's not who I am. That's not my nature. That's not the highlight of me. That's not the biggest attribute of me. Yes, I'm a God of judgment, and there's times I'm a God of wrath. But why would I do that to my own child? Why would I force you to go through this hardship of life? And then when the word says, I come that you may have life and life more abundantly. Yes, there are going to be challenging times, but I've not set it up like that where you don't enjoy it. And for me, I did enjoy going through suffering. Like I said, it made me feel as if I was doing something right. Like, God, this is the only way you love me. That's how I thought I viewed God's love. Or that's how I thought God loved me. And that's not true. And if you're not careful, what I learned is you'll start look at suffering and then you'll turn into self-righteous. And here's what I mean about that. And that's a whole nother episode, right? But I'll look at suffering and I'll measure it up to self-righteousness, because I think me going through suffering is purifying me. To now, if I too much suffering and too much purifying can sometimes make you look self-righteous or feel self-righteous, that you're better than the next person because you went through it all. That you know what it takes and what they're doing, and they're not going through enough suffering. And what I start to do is build up that same rapport that I thought others had did about me. What I start to be is that very thing that I'm saying something else did, whether it be church, whether it be the mindset that I created, the same thing that I thought about, or that I'm not going to say the same image that was placed on me is now what I'm doing to other people. That I'm hooping and hollering saying, oh, you ain't been through enough. You haven't been through enough to know this. You haven't been through enough to experience God. I think we have to stop telling people that, especially young people, that because what we're saying is you must go through something to see God. I heard a story one time of this young lady. She grew up in church her entire life, right? Her family was a pastor. Preaching just ran through her family, serving ran through her family. And she would come to church and hear all these people saying what they went through. And everybody would rejoice, like, oh my God, that God is so good that you made it out. And because she was going through nothing, she thought that she didn't have a true relationship with God. Because God was so good to her, she thought that God wasn't, that something was wrong with her, that because she wasn't going through a lot and waking up with a testimony of this or suffering here, that God wasn't loving her in the way that, God, you must don't love me if I'm not going through anything, that I don't have anything to relate to these people with. And as she got older, she regretted that, because what she had realized is she was missing out on the true version of God because she thought it was only in suffering. That you could live a peaceful life. Now, she didn't say she never went through anything, but the drastic of what suffering looked like. Sometimes we not glamorize it in a way that is so beautiful, but we do sometimes. That if I'm not going through anything, then it's not, it means that God isn't touching me. We don't read that Mary went through anything in the Bible. I don't know. I haven't. We don't read of that. Like, we glamorize that you have to go through something for God to do something through you. And it just makes me feel that that young teenager felt that God didn't love her because she didn't go through anything. That because her parents had laid a solid foundation of, breaking down altars probably and pleading the blood of Jesus and praying these prayers, that she was now rejecting probably the prayers that her family had laid, that they have went through it all. Think about it like this. Someone who suffered from poverty, you never want your children to see you. a late bill or have to worry about not being able to afford things that you work so hard so they don't have to do that. But then they grow up and be and envy or reject the fact that they didn't have to go anything, and then start to live that life that you paid for them not to have to experience. That young lady forced herself into situations because she felt like, if I'm not suffering, then I'm not getting the same version of God that you talk about. That we have to be careful not to glamorize suffering as this one all be all. Suffering is important. Suffering builds you, it makes you, it purifies you, and all of these things. But God can also purify you in peace. God can also make you in rest, and God can also do these things. That we have to stop projecting what we went through as the result of what somebody else has to go through to get to God. I don't want my children to deal with the same demonic things that I dealt with to make it seem like this is the only way that you get to God. I want, when I have kids, I've slayed every Goliath. They got new problems to worry about. That this Goliath will be no more. In Deuteronomy, it says that God will bring your enemies to you and that you will slice off the head and show it no mercy, that it no longer shows up in your life again. That I don't want certain things that I'm suffering with to be the same things that my kids are suffering with. And that be my testimony, that if you're not going through nothing, if you're not going through enough, that God doesn't love you, or you won't see God in this way. But just because I love you, I'll show you who I am. That just because I love you, I'll let you see me as a healer through the lens of somebody else. That maybe your body is in perfect health. That it doesn't mean certain things you do have to experience to probably to see the fullness of God. But God, I don't want to have to go through everything just to see you. That there's seasons in my life that just because I love you, I'll show you what a miracle looks like. That just because I love you, I'll show you what a breakthrough looks like. And it may not happen through you, but happen through someone else. And because you've seen it happen through them, now you have the revelation of who I am. Y'all, that set me free. That set me free to know that I serve a loving God who's so in love with me that he's willing to show me who he is and willing to bless me just because. That I don't have to go through another season of suffering, or I don't have to be so fearful that if I don't say yes to God, he won't love me, or he'll reject me, or he won't bless me. That sometimes y'all bless y'all kids or give y'all kids stuff even when they're disobedient. Sometimes you reward bad behavior just because they're your kid. That we have to start looking at God as, just because you're God, you're willing to do it. Just because you're God, that you're willing to heal me even though I didn't eat the right things or I didn't do the right things. Just because. That God said, stop treating me like a battered woman. Y'all, that took me out. That I'm treating this relationship with God as if he's abusive. How dare I? How dare I? That's enough. That's all I got for y'all today. I love you all a lot. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I can't wait to see you all next time. Talk to you later. Bye.